Hi everyone, I am Vismaya Rubin, founder of Living in Gratitude Today, teacher, speaker, best-selling author, but you know my favorite role is that of a gratitude gangster. What? And this lovely lady that's right next to me, you see, her name is Kathy Pendleton, and she is the founder of Get the Care You Deserve. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here.
So glad you're here. So she is one of the contributors to the Living in Gratitude Today journal, and y'all need to hear what she has to offer because, and I don't know if I've shared this with you, but really I had my Kathy with me when I was at the hospital with my mother probably about a year ago. Like, thank God you and I had that conversation first. And I knew the questions to ask. So I don't know if I told you, but I'm gonna tell you now. So I got a call and they were like, your mom, she's not behaving. She's not listening to anybody. She's doing things her way. You know, you need to come here. We need to give her another IV. And she's being really belligerent. So I said, put her on the phone. So I said, Ma, what's going on? I was really getting upset with her. I was super frustrated. And I started to, kind of like scold her, like, you need to listen to the doctors. You need to do what they're telling you. And she's like, out of control, and something clicked. And I said, put the doctor on or the nurse on for a minute. And I said, have you given her psychotropics? My mom is bipolar. And I had you in my head because asking those questions, and they were like, what do you mean? We didn't get the order from the doctor. And I'm about to explode like those cartoon characters because we sent her she went to the hospital with all of those meds. I had conversations with people while I was at the hospital. So now it's been probably 24 hours and she's cycling. She doesn't have the meds in her system. They don't have them ordered. And I was like, before you tell me anything about the IV, I said, I'm going to give you, from the time I get there, you got about 20 minutes. I said, you need to get in touch with the doctor. You need those meds ordered. He's like, I'm going to do that. I said, and then he starts rattling off some things. I said, I need to understand specifically what you're going to do. He's like, okay, Miss Rubin. He goes, I'm going to call the doctor. If I can't get the doctor, I'm going to do this. And if I can't do this, I said, perfect. Now I understand. I said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Within 5 minutes of me getting to the hospital, she had her meds. And then she was a different person. And it was truly because we had that conversation, I knew to ask those questions and I knew to kind of take a breath. I wasn't calm. My friend was like, who are you? And if I'm ever in the hospital, I want you by my side. So thank you for that. And I don't know if I shared that with you, but that was, it saved a lot of aggravation and a lot of pain from my mother. So thank you for that.
Yes. It's true. Thank you for saying that. I truly appreciate it. And it's always nice to hear when it works the way it's supposed to work, or alternatively, when the system isn't quite working the way you think it should work, but nobody's going to just come up to you and say that. And then something clicks in your own mind and you can ask the questions that need to be asked. That's so important because ultimately what I find is that as important as the information is that our doctors and nurses know, the information that we have as family members, that we know about our loved ones as family members, is just as important. You could recognize that behavior, but those new doctors and those new nurses, they don't know whether she acts belligerently as a matter of course, or whether it has to do with, and you would think something would click in their minds that, I don't know how long it's been since, but there's another piece of this whole puzzle here that we're talking about, this particular situation that we all need to be aware of as family members or as patients, if we're fortunate enough to be well enough to stand up for ourselves, is that your medications even though you take them with you, your medications don't necessarily follow you into a healthcare institution. There is another doctor who's in charge of your care, not necessarily the doctor who prescribed those meds. And consequently, they're not always given. And in the case of your mom, they weren't.
Right.
Weren't. And in addition, if you say you've had a knee replacement surgery, and then you're not going to have someone at home with you who's capable of giving you, moving you from place to place, lifting you, whatever. And so you go to a skilled nursing facility or a rehabilitation hospital or something like that. When you get to that other location, you're discharged from the hospital. You go over to this new facility. The same doctor's not in charge. The doctor who prescribed your pain med at the hospital is no longer in charge at this rehab facility. And so you may have to, maybe the doctor looks at it and has a bad experience with that painkiller. Maybe you're having a great experience. Maybe you're taking a higher dose than that doctor thinks you ought to be taking. Maybe. All you have to do is know. Once you're aware of what's happening, then you can look into it. Then you can ask questions. But if you don't know and understand that this kind of thing happens, you don't even think to ask it.
Right.
And it's so part of the process that we, as consumers of healthcare, we really don't know how the system works.
We don't, and we expect that as the professional that they're able to deal with all of the moving parts, and sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. And it's not to any fault of their own, but there's so many moving parts. So, which brings me to some, as of what's going on right now, what are some things that people can do? Because I can't go see my mother, and I know that there are a lot of people who are caring for older people. What are some things that they can do in this crazy COVID-19 time, and how can we be prepared for what's the expression? Prepare for the best, expect the worst. I don't like that, but how can we be the best prepared in case, God forbid, we have to take our loved one to the hospital or something like that happens?
So the thing that I think is really the most important, and this is my own point of view, and I just want to say that I'm not medically trained. I think that from the point of view of you and me talking, and other patients, family members of patients, personally, I think that's a plus. I'm not here to provide medical information. I can provide you with information about how to deal with the professionals on the other side and how to deal with how the hospital works, because they've been in the system. People who are trained, they've been in the system so long, they just don't even think about the things that aren't working from this side of the point of view, right? It's so normal to them. So personally, I think the most important thing that you can take with you is a list of medications and a list of supplements or over-the-counter stuff that you take. And the reason that I include supplements and over-the-counter medications is that whatever you're putting in your body, it interacts with all the other stuff that you're putting in your body. Most of the time, the interaction isn't detrimental, but it can be. Now, the brand name medications are pretty heavily regulated. They've gone through an approval process. They've been approved for a specific therapeutic remedy affecting a very specific disease or symptom or whatever. Generics, there's a wide level of variation that's allowed for a medication to call itself a generic of this particular product. But the things that are not the active ingredient in a generic are going to be different than the things that are in the brand name product.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. So when we make those lists, that we let them know that if it's a generic or if it's the name brand. Yes?
The name will indicate, I mean, it won't indicate what it is, but for instance, Synthroid is the brand name thyroid, low thyroid medication. And then levothyroxine is the generic. So you'll have a name like, if it's generic, you'll have a name like levothyroxine. But you can ask your pharmacist which one you've got if you're interested in knowing specifically. Is this a generic or is this the brand name medication? And your prescription, if you've had really good luck with a brand name medication and somehow or other it gets swapped for a medication that's not doing you as much good, that you notice a difference, you can ask the pharmacist about it. Then you can ask the doctor to fill it out in such a way that it has to be filled out with the brand name medication, or vice versa.
Right.
Maybe the generic works better for you for whatever reason. I mean, some of us like Tylenol, and some of us like aspirin, and some of us like Aleve.
Right. So have the name brands, have the medicine chart ready, and the supplements you said. So if I'm taking vitamins, make sure I have that written down as well. Good to know.
Now, even supplements are not regulated at all. So it's important that if you can, just take the bottle with you. It sounds crazy to take a bottle that has 1,000 tablets of this, that, or the other thing, but just take the bottle along, because the brand name makes a huge difference. They're not going to be the same. And we've all heard the horror stories about having a supplement and that particular vitamin isn't even in whatever it is you're taking that you think is going to do you some good, but that kind of thing exists. So supplements can interact with prescription medications. They can interact with the effect of over-the-counter medications. It's important that all of the stuff that you take on a typical basis, a regular basis, that the doctors know about. It's just important. They will know about. I mean, there are some pills that you can take that affect clotting. Here's a really brutal example, but there are medications that affect clotting, right? They're natural medications, it's an herb or whatever, but unbeknownst to us, maybe it affects clotting and we're going in for surgery. And if you're going in for surgery and you're taking anything that affects clotting in a way that inhibits clotting or makes it slower, the doctors need to know about it. You probably need to stop it 2 or 3 days or a week before the surgery. You simply have to tell them everything you're taking. It's absolutely imperative, necessary, critical, can be dangerous. You have to let them know.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. So those were two huge things. So one, make sure you have the list of medicines, name brands or generic, and make sure you have a list of all the supplements you're taking, and let the doctor know that before, if there's a surgery, beforehand. Those were awesome pieces of advice, because I normally would not think of supplements, but you're right, that is very important.
It's an important piece, surprisingly important piece of the whole picture.
So what do you recommend we do now? Because we're in this crazy space where we can't go visit our loved ones. My mom is in a nursing home and an assisted living facility. I can't go see her. I waved at her through the window the other day, which was not, she didn't like that very much, but
no,
it made her sad. She was really, she was already sad that she couldn't see me. So when she saw me through the window, she's like, I miss you, and started to cry. So I was like, uh-oh.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that, because it is important to know how our loved ones are going to respond, what they're going to respond to. my father-in-law is also in an assisted living facility. You know, we can't go. It makes us feel guilty. It makes them feel lonely. We're feeling lonely. You know, I really don't go out of the house as much as I used to, and I don't feel a whole lot of problems with that. My husband is kind of looking for a reason to go out of the house every day. You know, okay, honey, you go to the grocery store and bring this back. That'll be fine. But it's an amazing thing, you know, that some of us seem to be a lot more okay with this than others. For family members, though, especially family members in these isolated cases, they're lonely anyway. You know, they maybe they can't get around as well as they used to. Maybe they're not allowed to drive anymore. We've all been told not to go very many places. They've been scared by the fact that if they're over 60 or 65, they're really not supposed to be going out at all, or as going out as little as they possibly can. So, I mean, I was thinking about this. We can certainly call them on the phone every day, or even twice a day if they like it. If they, you know, it all depends on what's making them comfortable. So, you know, if they're busy, you know, maybe they crochet a lot, or they knit a lot, or they sleep, or maybe they take a nap at a certain time of the day. You need to know when their nap is so that you don't wake them up. We're feeling guilty because we can't go. And so, you know, we're maybe a little more likely to call than we would otherwise have been. But I think you can do things like, if they can still use a computer and they know how to use a computer and they can follow directions, you can, it's a big deal. You can teach them. Zoom is the easiest tool going. You can send them that line to type in. You know, if they use email and they can get that line in an email, you can tell them to just click on that link and then it'll come up, right? So I think Zoom is an incredibly useful tool, and you can call them every day. The other thing is that there are those electronic photo frames. Electronic photo frame, and give them an electronic photo frame. Okay, here's the downside of that little toy. It's a great thing, right? And some of them have the inventory of photographs in the cloud. So you can add to their photographs, right, from the cloud. Okay, so there's two things. First of all, you've got to get it inside to them, right? That can be an issue because it may require some setup. If there's just the electronic thing that you load the photos on from outside and then sit it there and it runs through them, that's a little bit better in this case because it doesn't require any immediate setup. In order to set it up again or add photos, you're going to have to get it out, but it doesn't require any initial setup. For the people who are doing the medical care, their expertise is not in setting up your electronic toys.
And right now they're not even in that space. But you know, you gave me a good idea because my mother is electronically, she is not savvy. She doesn't even know how to turn on the phone. Like, we've tried to give her phones and it was a nightmare. I think she gave it away. She doesn't say that, but I think she did. But you know, I was thinking I could send her a card. I could do something like that just so that she still has connection with the outside world. And I think what that will do also is make her feel better so that she's calmer when she's in the facility, because right now everybody is in a space of, you know, high alert. So I think that's something I'm going to work on this week, is sending her a little card so that she gets mail, which she normally doesn't get, because I'm always, you know, I go by there all the time. So yeah, it's a trying time for a lot of people, and we have to start to be really imaginative of ways that we can create connection with people, especially our loved ones, so that they're getting the care that they deserve. And now it seems like it's not just the care from the doctors. What I'm hearing you say, it's how are we also showing that we care for them when we're doing this whole distance or socially distancing or from each other. So
right. It's an issue. You can also the pictures that you take on your phone, the pictures that you have on your phone, you can go to Walgreens and have them printed, right? Or any place. Walmart does it, CVS does it. They all, all these places have a way to print photographs from your phone. If you've got photographs that you're in, or that your siblings are in, if you've got them, or that your children are in, you can take those photographs, have them printed, put them in a little photo book, right? Wipe the thing off, right? Wipe it off, put it in a baggie, right? And take it. When they get it, they can wipe the baggie down with bleach. It's not going to hurt anything. And then they can have a new photo album to look through. I think photos are they're just the best. There are also those little, at Christmas time, they come up a lot. You can make a photo book. I can't remember the name of the company.
I know, Shutterfly.
Yeah, Shutterfly, exactly.
They all of them have it. All of the photo places you can do that with, but you're right.
But anything to get some photos in there, to give them something that they can look at, give them something that they can, that cheers them up.
What are some other tips you can give us? You shared something with me a long time ago, and I cannot remember it right now. But I remember when I heard it for the first time, I was like, what? And it was something that we would never think about. You've shared so many nuggets with me, but it was something that you would never think about. And all of a sudden you said it to me, and my eyes went, whoa, because I was shocked that you even said it. And I cannot think of it right now. I think it's just part of my memory, or you know what I'm saying? It's like part of something I automatically do now that I don't remember. So there's anything that they like, or that they used to like, or that they liked with your family. Maybe you want to tape something from your voice. Maybe you want to tape you and your kids and your brothers and your sisters singing happy birthday, or singing happy Easter, or something like that. Put it on a tape. Or I don't know. Did you say that she doesn't know how to use a cell phone? Mm-hmm. Oh, no, my father-in-law's in the same state, so we can't do that anymore. Obviously, if you can use a cell phone or a smartphone, you can do FaceTime. It achieves the same effect as Zoom. And it's so much easier. But you can use FaceTime, and you can take videos and get them in there. And that allows them to see the kids playing, or see their dog or a dog playing with the family, or see the cats, or right now, my father-in-law is not at a level that he understands that FaceTime is actually interactive. He thinks we're showing him a video. So he won't talk back. You can ask a question, but he just thinks it's a video of you making a statement. So he's not going to answer. And that's a shame. But, depending on, I don't know what kind of, in your place, I don't know what kind of interaction there is any longer between the staff and the residents, because it makes a huge difference. I know that where my father-in-law is, for people who are in, for the residents that are in assisted living, so they're mostly capable of caring for themselves, their meals are now placed on a tray outside their doors. So they're not even getting that kind of interaction. It's a tough thing. And so I'm definitely concerned. It makes me worried that, now you've got people who are lonely anyway,
And now they're really isolated. So anything that we can do to get them to feel less isolated. I mean, they've got to be anxious. This is a crazy time. Most of us are feeling, you know, anywhere from a little bit anxious to downright scared.
I just shared with you, I had a meltdown. I came from the store. You know, this is real time. We are having a candid conversation, because I think that is absolutely the whole purpose of these interviews. You know, Kathy's business has completely shifted, it sounds like, because you were really dealing with people who are going to the doctors and offering them, you know, here are some questions that you ask, here are some things that you do to make sure you're getting the best care. And now it sounds like what I'm hearing is, here are some things we can do for our loved ones that we're not able to get in touch with. And all of it comes from your own experience.
Well, yes. And today, a friend of mine called, or I called a friend of mine today. I'm like, how are you feeling? She goes, I feel like I've been hit by a truck. And of course, my mind immediately goes to, oh my goodness, the virus. No, she fell off her bike.
Oh.
She fell off her bike. Okay, so now she's had a collision with the ground. Boom. All right, she's got scrapes and and she fell on her arm, and her arm is really painful. So now we're thinking, how can she get medical attention without going to the emergency room? I mean, she wouldn't mind getting this arm imaged, but how do you do that?
Mm.
Okay, so we're like, okay, what can we do? So here's where you go from thinking outside the box. So most insurance companies these days have a nurse. The nurse hotline may not be on your insurance card that's that you carry around so you can look at the back of it. May not be spelled out on there, but you can call their 800 line customer number, and it might be in the list of options that you have from that card. All right, is the nurse hotline or the health hotline or whatever they call it. Then it turns out that in my town, in Orlando, Florida, there is an orthopedic practice group. Well, for the most part, there probably are not going to be flu patients at the orthopedic practice, because really what we want to do is we want to go somewhere where we're not going to run into a bunch of people who are experiencing symptoms of COVID-19. Nobody wants to be exposed to that mess. So if she can go to an orthopedic practice, okay, we avoid that whole emergency room debacle right now. And it turns out that there are imaging practices, clinics, whatever you call those, and you can go in with an order that asks for an image of your arm or your leg or your ribs or whatever.
So the nurse can order those? Are they nurse practitioners?
So I don't have a referral requirement on my insurance. I'm hoping that they don't either, but obviously if their insurance requires a referral to see a specialist, then she'll have to get a referral to go to the orthopedic practice. If not, she can just walk in there or call them and get an appointment and say, this is what happened. I think you're my best chance of getting medical care and avoiding exposure to this virus. And then she can get a referral or a prescription or whatever they call it when you get an order to have this imaging done and go over there. So that's what we were looking at, but it takes a little bit of thought. It's like, okay, how do I do this to achieve exactly what I want to do? You know, what I want to have happen. And it's, you can get there. There are ways that you can deal with the system.
Are you finding that some of these doctors' offices are still open?
I don't know. I haven't had to go. My doctor's office 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had been in Fort Lauderdale. I got sick when I got back. And I waited a week, went away. And 2 or 3 days later, it was back again. So I thought, well, I don't have a fever. I don't have a headache, but I've got to do something. I don't know what's going on. You know, my nose is running. Okay, it's not the classic thing. So I called them up, and they had those tents, the tents that you see at craft shows. They had a couple of those sitting out on the lawn of the office building that they're in. And that's where they were seeing patients that's where they were seeing patients, back there. And they had people spread out all over the place who were in the waiting area, right? Everybody's doing the best they can.
Yep, I hear you. So what are some of the services that you offer people?
So there are all sorts of issues when you're dealing with the doctor. These questions come up when you're sitting in a doctor's office, when you go into a hospital, when you are in when you're in a skilled nursing facility or in an assisted living facility. All of these, talking to the doctor or talking to the healthcare provider, it turns out that it's different in all of these environments. So one of the things that we have to know as consumers is we have to look into, how does the process work where I am? And that's what I think that we need to understand. And we have to realize that, especially if you're getting really angry and frustrated, probably has to do with the fact that the process is different where you are than from what you're used to. So at the doctor's office, what happens? We get in there, we really don't have very long. So I would say, first of all, you have to be really truthful with your doctor. And it's our responsibility. The conversation starts with us and our input. So we have to remember what's been going on with us and how long it's been going on, right? And we have to be truthful. The doctor is not there to judge if you have a drug dependency. You have to say so, right? Because that enables them to do the right investigation. So you have to be truthful. They're not there to judge, right? They're there to make you better. Emergency rooms. Emergency rooms, right now, I would advise you not to go to an emergency room unless you're pretty sure you want to be treated for COVID-19. That's it, right? Because you're going to get exposed. You can pretty much guarantee it. So, but one of the things you can do with emergency rooms is you can call and find out how busy they are, right? How many people they've got waiting, right? So if you absolutely have to go there and you have a choice of times when you can go, call and find out what the wait's like. Call and find out what that hospital is like. The other thing about emergency rooms is this. Every doctor, and maybe a lot of us know it, and I'm sure that I didn't know it for a long time. The doctors that you go to have privileges at the hospital. That means that they can behave like a doctor in that hospital. They can give you medical advice. They can look at you and, take your blood pressure and listen to your heart. They can act like a doctor in that hospital. In some hospitals, they won't have privileges. In that case, they probably won't come to see you, period, full stop, end of story. They can't do it because you're going to expect them to act like a doctor, and they can't do that.
So know beforehand then.
If you're going to go to a hospital and there's a doctor that you want to be caring for you in the hospital, if it's a weekday, call their office and ask if they're going to do it, and maybe have them admit you. But make sure that that they can treat you at a particular hospital if that's what you're expecting. It's very important.
Very good information.
At a nursing home or an assisted living facility, a residential healthcare facility, basically, that's not a hospital, you have to understand that there's probably one doctor in charge of all of the patients at that facility. And to tell you the truth, I don't really know how to get on that doctor's schedule, but there's a way. For sure, there's a way.
I know how.
Hey, what do you do?
So I know what day he goes there, and one of the things that I can tell you is because I show up at all different times at the nursing home, and they see my face, they all know who I am. So if I call and I'll say, listen, I know he comes in on Thursday, my mom needs to be on it because I'm going to come over, they make sure it happens. Or, I'll call and say, make sure she gets on the list. So I know that he comes on Thursdays. And last time he was supposed to come, I had scheduled with him. I was going to come in and talk to him. And that appointment he didn't end up coming. And I don't know what the whole story was. But so they come usually certain times. And then the people in the facility know when it's happening. So they only can take a certain amount of people, though.
Right.
So it may be 15, and you have to kind of go with your questions and let them know what's going on. And I try as a family member to go in there as often as I can. I show up sometimes even when she's doing physical therapy, or I pop in all the time so that it's very clear. And granted, I'm self-employed and I work from home, and that's the nice part, is that I can pop in and they don't know that what's my schedule. And I have to say that they're 99.9% of the time, everyone in there, with the exception of maybe one person, is very nice to my mother. Very nice to her, very nice to the patient. So I can't complain. Right now my heart goes out to all of them. I can't imagine what they're dealing with, what it's like for them. But the doctors usually come on a regular basis.
Well, thank you for that. So it's important to know the process of the place you're going. And the other thing that you said that reminded me of something is that we all have an amount of guilt associated with having our loved ones live in a residential healthcare facility and not caring for them in our homes ourselves. However, there are situations, and our circumstances often prevent us from indulging ourselves and indulging them in family care. Any place you choose, any place that you have, arranged for your family member to live, you have to go there personally. You have to go and see what's happening and just look around. And it sounds silly. Okay, what am I looking for? Well, you're looking for the fact that it's clean, right? That there's not like dust bunnies around and under the bed, that there's not, that it doesn't look like, it was a week ago that they cleaned out the sink. Okay, mostly you're not going to find that. But the other thing is that you want to see whether your family member looks clean, whether they're being cared for. It's interesting, but depending on their liability, they may not allow your family member to take a bath alone, right? They may have to have an attendant. And in those situations, they're only going to get bathed maybe 2 or 3 times a week because they don't have enough people to have people bathing every single day. But those are the things you want to take care of. Here's my, looking at things on a negative basis. I would say, ask your family member, give them a new shirt, or ask them about, or give them a pair of shorts. Here's what you're looking for. You want to see their body. You want to see their arms. You want to see their legs. If you bring them a new shirt, ask them to try it on with you there. You want to be sure they're not being hurt. It sounds very sad to say, but you want to know these things. It's heartbreaking. A very good friend of mine, her father eventually got to be too much for her mom to care for alone. He had Alzheimer's. She and her brother both worked in the medical system, and they chose a place that was very close to where her mom lived. And when her dad passed away, his body was bruised all over. It was horrific. They had no idea. And they were looking. They had people going in there all the time. So it sounds silly, but you know, if you want to put lotion on your family member, if you want to put lotion on their legs, old people tend to have dry skin, you know, up to here. Ask them if they can lift up their shirt, put lotion on their back, and you're looking to make sure that old people their skin gets thin. I mean, that's what they call it. That's not what it is, but they call it, they get thin skin and they bruise easily. But, you know, and you look at these older ladies who wear long sleeves. I don't have bruises on my arm, just so you know, but they wear a lot of long sleeves, and it's because they can just knock up against something ever so slightly and they'll get a bruise, and they don't want that to show. But as a son or a daughter, you want to know that the caregivers at the residence where your loved one is located, you want to know that your loved one is not being hurt. You want to know.
I never thought about that, but you're right. Like, my mom always gets bruises, but my mother also is very vocal that if something was happening, she would, thank God, tell me. You know, you reminded me of something else you had shared with me a while ago, is that a lot of times when our loved ones that are in these places are starting to kind of, if their behavior is out of whack or they're not acting the way they normally do, a lot of times it's a UTI. And a UTI in an older person is very different than a UTI in a younger person. And I know we're getting a little technical here, or maybe, you know, a little too much for some people, but I didn't realize that. And now every time I see if my mom starts to go behave in a certain way, I'm like, check her for a UTI, check her for a UTI, because I didn't know that that's how, I didn't realize that there was a difference in the way that people react.
And it can affect how their mind,
Yeah.
it can affect how their mind works. So yes, UTIs are very different in the elderly than they are with people in their 20s. It's an important thing to keep track of. Absolutely. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's just such a surprising thing.
Are there any last minute tips you want to give people, or tricks, or, because you shared some information with us that was pretty interesting and pretty important that we remember. I mean, I didn't ever think to check for bruises like that. That would never have been, but I'm also fortunate again that my mom is vocal, so.
Yes, definitely.
And she would probably tell them where to go if they touched her inappropriately.
It's a different kind of approach to things. It's a different mindset. And we don't have to be thinking that way every single minute. We really don't have to be thinking like that all of the time. But as when people become less and less capable and lose their independence and are depending on us, we want to be sure we're there for them. I mean, really, that's what this is all about at the end of the day. We want to know that we were the best daughters that we could be, the best sons that we could be, that, you know, even if we couldn't keep them at home with us, we know they're in a place where they're getting really good care, and that the people care for them. They don't just take care of them, they care for them. And that, because we can all feel that, you know, all of us. So I have a website. It's called getthecareyoudeserve.com. There is a giveaway on that website. I'm about to change it to something new. So you can be looking for that.
So if people want to get the gift that you have now, they can get it. And will you send them a new gift also? The updated one?
I can. So let's see. I am on Facebook. I have a page on Facebook, a Get the Care You Deserve page on Facebook. They can go to the Get the Care You Deserve Facebook page and they can message me on that, and I can make sure that they, you know, give me your email address, right? I can make sure that, because Facebook, you know, doesn't come with Facebook, but I can make sure that they get both gifts. But you brought something up, having that list of questions for the doctor. I know that we all don't think that way, but having a list of questions and like, oh my, honestly, I don't know what to ask. You know what? Just start asking. Make sure you know what every medication that they prescribe is for. Ask them questions about the medication. You know, my mom is already on a lot of things. Do you know whether this medication interacts with any of them? So once you start talking, they're going to start talking, right? And
It reminded me also when I go to bring a paper and pen to write down some of the answers, because I don't always remember. And if I have to share that information with somebody, at least now I have it where it's on paper and I can say, hey, let's take a look at this. So that was another great tip that you reminded me of that sometimes I would not have thought about.
Right, get a little notebook. If you're going to see a family member who's in assisted living or at a recovery center or skilled nursing, always take a notebook with you so that you can write stuff down. Absolutely. Yeah, that's really very important. And so you can, you know, for us and for them, uncertainty is a certain level of suffering. We like to know how things, what to expect, right? That's the big deal about this right now. That's what's creating a whole lot of the anxiety. We don't know what to expect, right? There isn't a drug for this thing. All of the information about what works and what doesn't, it's just stories from person to person. They're worried about clinical trials, and that's why, right? It's a way for them to test in an organized way what works and what doesn't. Because right now, you know, works for one person, doesn't work for the next person. We're all trying to figure it out. One thing we really know about this disease, we really know about this virus, it is big time, major league, first class contagious. It is the most, one of the guys I saw who was a researcher, a viruses researcher, he went over to China really early on, didn't get it there. Eventually he came back and he got it in New York. However, this guy says this is the most transmissible virus he's ever seen. So that's what all this social distancing is about, right? This thing is very, very, very contagious. And that's really pretty much what they know.
So yes, and like I was sharing with you, I was at the grocery store today and it was so strange for me because we don't know how to be socially distant. We love to be near each other, right? For the most part, we don't want people in our personal space, but we don't know how to be socially distant. It's awkward, it's weird. And then I saw older people at the store and I was very emotional today. I had a big old cry and then, you know, all I kept saying in my head was thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to the people who are doing the work, and thank you to the people who are, you know, stocking the shelves, and the people who are the cashiers. And I had to go to 2 different stores so that my friends' parents didn't go to the store, and I was shopping for a couple of people. And I think that you're right. We don't know, and that is the biggest part. So let's end on a very positive. What is the best thing that's happened, or your best experience through this whole COVID-19?
I like to cook. I like eating food that to me is delicious. So I found a new meat market, a new farm that has organic meats. And this is going to sound totally crazy, but when I traveled in France a few years ago, I was introduced to duck confit.
I do not know what that is.
It's this, okay, so it's duck breast or duck legs, and they're cooked and preserved in duck fat. Oh my goodness, I found a frozen package of this stuff at this new little meat market. It was so expensive. I was like, well, thank God I don't have to buy this for dinner every week. But I got it. I got it. Oh my gracious. So my husband and I had it for dinner that night. It was so yummy. It was so yummy. Okay, that's the very best thing.
Okay, good. You see?
Other thing, I was so happy about it. But the other thing is that everybody really is working together, pulling together. I mean, the things that I've seen about that the doctors and nurses are posting, these people are afraid. They're sacrificing time with their families, and I don't mean just on their shifts, right? They're living somewhere else, right? They're keeping their kids and their spouses safe, right? And so, or they're not getting close to their children. Once they come back from a shift, they're working under battleground conditions, and people are pulling together in order to make this work. People are staying home. All you have to do is go outside at rush hour. And you can see that people are being aware and supportive and of one another. And that's, and all of the things, I mean, there's more cat stuff online right now than, and little babies, right? Laughing and dancing, and oh my gracious. And that one about the dog playing the piano and howling while he's playing the piano. And then he stops howling and he stops playing the piano, and he comes back, and as soon as he hits a key on the piano, he's howling again. Everybody's trying to be supportive and to raise one another's spirits. I just think that's beautiful.
I love it. All right. So
yeah. I'm real grateful for all of those things.
Right. And I think I think it's a matter of being both, feeling what we're feeling, all of that other stuff, and still tapping into that space. Like I'm like, yeah. So today was a challenging time out and about, but then again, being able to have these conversations and pull people up has been very powerful. So people can find you once again at Get the Care You Deserve on Facebook.
Yes, and getthecareyoudeserve.com. If you have topics that you would like to see discussed, I would love to hear from you on Get the Care You Deserve, the Facebook page. That would be great.
I'll share all that information with people so they can just click the link when I post the video, and they'll get to go to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
It is my
pleasure. Vismaya, thank you for having me. It's so good to see you.
Yes, absolutely. So you have Kathy Pendleton, a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. So if you are dealing with a loved one who's going through some challenging times and you need to know what to do or how to talk to the doctor, please reach out to her. I'll put all the links so that you know how to find her. And I am Vismaya Rubin, founder of Living in Gratitude Today, and everyone's favorite gratitude gangsta. What? Thank you all for being here.